All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Homelessness Solutions pre-bid webinar for our 24-25 grant application. Before we get started, you will see, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little number 1 out of 105. If you click the arrows, you can actually go through these slides in whatever order that you want. You can also, if you click the little square, you see grid view, you can look at all of the slides that will be presented today. So if you missed something, you want to go back and look at it while we're in this webinar, you can do that. And then if you click on the 3 little dots for more actions, you're actually able to translate these slides in case there's a language you prefer outside of English, and view the slides in high contrast. So just wanted to go over those few little housekeeping tips, and we are going to get started. So you are in the pre-bid webinar for the 24-25 Homelessness Solutions NOFA. This NOFA, this pre-bid webinar is mandatory. So if you see if you see an organization that you know that probably would be interested, it isn't here, feel free to shoot them a quick text and let them know that this is mandatory. So this webinar is being recorded. Everybody is muted in this webinar. You can use the chat feature to ask questions. We'll respond to those questions in the chat feature, and we'll also try to go over those questions verbally in case additional information is needed. And if you typed your question into the chat and we're still not understanding your question, at the end, you'll also be able to raise your hand. We'll unmute you, and you'll be able to ask your question verbally that way. So we have a pretty packed agenda. You can see we're going to be going over a lot of information, but there will be definitely time for questions. So as we're going through things, please feel free to type your question into the chat. And as we're going through the section, you don't have to hold your questions until a certain time. All right, mandatory. And so now we're going to do welcome and introductions. So hello, everybody. My name is Tara Linsner. I am the Homelessness Solutions Director in the Housing and Revitalization Department in the city of Detroit. We'll just go in order. Donna?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Donna Lyons, Program Analyst, pronouns she, her, and I am primarily responsible for data and compliance.
Paige, you're muted.
Yep, I am. Paige Beasley. I help to oversee some of the emergency services, which includes shelter and outreach.
Good afternoon, I'm Stacy Conwell Lee. My areas of focus are health and HOPA, and my pronouns are she, they.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Jeremy Cugliari, Program Analyst, pronouns he, him, and my focus is on grievances and emergency shelter.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Blackman. I'm assisting Paige and Jeremy with emergency shelter programs, and she, her are my pronouns.
Good afternoon, everyone. Crystal Hull. My pronouns are she, her, and I oversee the ARPA diversion and prevention programs.
Hey, everybody. Julia Janko, she, her. I work with our rapid rehousing providers. And Lauren Licata is out today, but she works as part of the home ARP team.
Hello, everyone. Clarice Perkins. I work on street outreach, pronouns she, her.
Clarice, we can't hear you.
Is this any better? No.
Slightly better.
It's a little better. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I will try to talk louder. But Clarice Perkins, I work on street outreach and pronouns are she, her.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Toya Yancey, and I work with outreach and DPD coordination, and I also oversee some ARPA contracts with shelter and outreach teams.
Thanks. And we also have a couple of other folks on this webinar that are from other city departments. And so if you want to come off mute and introduce yourself as well, be great.
Good afternoon. My name is Hilary Edwards, and I'm with the Office of Contracting and Procurement, and I'll be the procurement contact for this NOFA. And the pronouns are he, him.
Hi, my name is Cedric McCree. I'm with the Office of Contracting and Procurement, and I'll be your e-procurement specialist to help you navigate the Oracle system.
Great. Jessica, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I can. My name is Jessica Compton. I'm from the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, and I'm an auditor that does the annual audits for the grant programs with the City of Detroit.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Now I'm going to turn it over to Paige Beasley, who's going to start getting into the content of this webinar by first starting with the Detroit COC overview.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara. I did my best to try to close my blind, so I apologize in advance if it looks a little weird. But before I use the slide, it talks about our role within the Detroit CLC and just the CLC in general. And so the City of Detroit works within the scope of the Detroit CLC, which is really a network comprised of different organizations and stakeholders that do work together in a unison goal of ending homelessness. And so within our Detroit CLC, we do have like our CLC lead agency, HMIS lead agency. We have a network of funders, community advocates, the homeless service providers, as well as coordinated entry and the CLC board. This slide talks about our overview of data of the households that we are going to be serving in light of all of the funding that will be, in light of the NOFA that will be going out. And so just kind of getting a overview of the homelessness numbers. I'm sorry, I apologize. So this slide just really highlights just the scope of the households that we will be looking to serve. So homelessness numbers did increase over the past year by 9%. And then we did see a significant increase in just populations in all population types, with the exception of youth under the age of 18. In this chart, you can really just see the differences in terms of our changes over the past 3 years. We were making some strides within 2021. However, as we all know, has not been an easy road, has been some significant changes and increases. And so at this point in time, we have seen an influx of about 9%. And this is across the board. So just really looking to figure out creative ways in order to move forward and addressing some solutions for those households. Okay. CAM coordination. So purpose of CAM, coordinated entry, is really to create a consistent and streamlined process for accessing resources. CAM really is identified to prioritize resources for highest needs and be able to ensure that households have access to those resources. Also to really transform a network of independently operating projects to really fully integrate into a productive system. And so there are 4 key elements of coordinated entry: access, assessment, prioritization, and referral. As most folks know, we recently went through a transition within our CAM coordinated entry. And so we have multiple partners who are assisting with those particular components. All programs and program types that go through our ESG and CDBG funding does require participation through coordinated entry. So required to take all of referrals through coordinated entry, as well as establishing a CAM liaison.
Okay, NOFA overview. So homeless solutions funding. The City of Detroit's Housing and Revitalization Department is committed to making homelessness rare, brief, and non-reoccurring for its residents. So funding included in this NOFA are emergency solutions, the Emergency Solutions Grant, commonly known as ESG, and the Community Development Block Grant, commonly known as CDBG. There's an estimated $5 million will be available dependent upon HUD. Please note an application does not guarantee funding will be received. So the program types that are being funded are street outreach, emergency shelter and/or warming centers, rapid rehousing, and homelessness prevention. And what's new? So emergency shelters and warming centers must apply for a minimum of 20 beds in order to be considered for this funding. A benchmark section separate from program components. The data section that aligns with the Detroit COC data requirements. So our subrecipient requirements are 1-to-1 match requirement for ESG. So you'll get a copy of this slide after. You can refer to that policy for guidance. CDBG homeless public service funds may be awarded to meet part of this requirement. And then match sources can also include cash contributions and non-cash contributions. All match sources must be committed to support ESG eligible activities during the contract period. Performance-based contracts to support the reduction of households experiencing homelessness since 2016. All awarded contracts will enter performance-based contracts. Each program type has performance benchmarks, and not meeting those benchmarks will impact your NOFA score. So you can read Appendix C for more information regarding those details. All subrecipients must enter data into HMIS or a comparable database for DV programs, participate in COC work groups and committees, participate in Detroit's Coordinated Entry System, CAM, provide services using a housing first and low barrier approaches, and comply with all contract requirements. And again, these policies will be attached for you to review. And you must also comply with the reimbursement-based billing process. I'll pass it back to Paige.
Thanks, Jessica. Just touching on threshold and scoring. So just want to note that the forms, there will be forms that will be required to be downloaded, reviewed, completed, and uploaded. In addition to that, you, the applicant, will be required to attach and upload additional documents as well. So for renewal applicants, those who have applied with the City of Detroit previously, your agreement, if you have had an active COD Homelessness Solutions Division subrecipient agreement at any time between January through December, you are considered a renewal applicant. And new applicants, if you have not had a contract with the City of Detroit or a subrecipient agreement prior to January 1, you will be considered a new applicant. So just take note of new applicant or renewal. All applications must meet the following basic eligibility requirements in order to be accepted and considered for funding. So completed application in Oracle by March 4th at 1 p.m. Attending the NOFA pre-bid webinar. You guys are here, so check that off. Submitting attachment 1. Document at least one person will live with people with experience on the applicant's BOD. Form 2, financial capacity, proof of financial capacity. Attachment 2, active SAM.gov registration or proof of applicant submission. In addition to that, Form 3, verifying of compliance with HUD or CRD terms, conditions, and regulations. Attachment 3, single audit or prepared financial audit from 22 or later, 23 preferred as applicable. Attachment 4, proof of your 501c status, and then Form 4, affidavit of good standing with IRS. So in addition to that, in addition to that, there are additional forms. Form 5, agreeing to adhere to implementing the equal access requirements, as well as Form 6, certification that the agency does not have like tickets. And this is new this year for emergency shelters and warming centers. They must apply for a minimum of 20 beds. Jessica did highlight that piece, and so we just really want you guys to make sure that you're aware of that. For new applicants, Form 1A and 1B was going to require participation in HMIS. 1A outside of Detroit for at least 1 year. I'm sorry, I apologize. So that just kind of talks about the Form 1A, 1B really just breaks down the requirements of your HMIS certification. And attachment 5, 2 years experience operating social services programs. Okay. Apologies. Okay, for scoring overview. So funding consideration would be considered for higher scoring applicants who have the potential to be recommended for higher amounts of funding. Applicants that score for 80% or more will be prioritized, and funding for applicants that score below 80% will be contingent on the system need of the capacity required. And that will require a participant to perform, to have monthly performance improvement plan. So the meeting threshold, just want to highlight, does not guarantee funding. This is just simply a threshold at this point. So this is the overview of the scoring grid. So total points possible will be out of 100. We're going to be looking at different elements, which include your budget, financial capacity, program components, data, a number of different things, as well as I want to highlight the application attachments as well. Okay, things to note. Every question does have a scoring criteria listed below in italics. So some questions may have different scoring criteria versus new versus renewal applicants. So you want to be mindful of those because though that information is letting you know specifically what information we are looking to understand more of. Funding priorities. So through this NOFA, funding is going to be very limited. If the city receives more applications than available, then the following priorities will be taken into consideration. We will be looking to maintain the current number of shelter beds available. We will be looking to fund up to one prevention provider as determined by the final NOFA score, and we will be looking to prioritize rapid rehousing providers that can serve all populations. So there are some points on that as well. All right, I'm going to move us into the application overview. So application requirements, again, the deadline is March 4th at 1 p.m. You want to make sure that you are submitting that into the Oracle system. It has to go through Oracle. You want to make sure you're meeting all threshold criteria. You're going to complete the submission, all parts of the application, and you make sure to upload all applicable attachments and forms. This includes application uploaded in Microsoft Word format and Form 4, the budget, as well as Form 5, your outcome calculation workbook would need to be in the Microsoft Excel format. Some important notes. One application needs to be submitted for one agency. Funding requests should be a minimum of $100,000. Contract start dates will vary depending on warming centers, which starts November 1st. November 1st of 2024. All other program types start January 1st, 2025. Narrative responses should be limited to 300 words or less. And you want to mark whether your application is renewal or new applicant for each program type. Please answer all of the questions, all parts of the questions. All questions must be submitted via Oracle. Any reference or questions in regards to the NOFA needs to go through Oracle. We are asking that you do not email any HRD staff while the NOFA is still open. All right, so additional information about the application overview. So all applicants must complete the following items. We want to make sure that the application cover sheet is completed, organizational experience and capacity in addressing homelessness, the financial capacity to manage City of Detroit grants, program component narrative questions, including street outreach, emergency shelter and warming center, rapid rehousing, homelessness prevention, and the forms and the attachments check sheet as well. This is the overview of the application cover sheet. Information listed here should be for the entire agency. So this is not going to be specific for your program types. We want to make sure that you're using this document for your entire agency. So not just the programs you are applying for. All applicants must all applicants must complete this additional form for the program entry. You want to follow the sample. You can add additional rows if needed. In terms of the organization experience and capacity in addressing homelessness, applicants will highlight how the organization embodies the Detroit COC and the 2024 NOFA priorities. This year, we have something new. We are using grids in our application. And so you want to complete all sections, attach the policy as indicated, include the policy page numbers, and read through all of the questions to ensure it's complete. In terms of the last couple of notes, samples included, there are going to be samples included. You want to make sure you delete those when you're completing your application. You want to ensure that you're reviewing those instructions. Again, make sure you're completing all the sections, attach the policy as indicated, and make sure you're including those page numbers as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Compton, and I will be discussing the financial capacity section of the NOFA bid process with you. The financial capacity section totals 20 points for this section. And the scoring will be based on the financial performance and the financial capacity and compliance. There will be 6 points allocated to the financial ratio analysis, which will be utilizing the CPA prepared financial statements, the budgets, and the IRS 990s. 14 points will be allocated to the financial capacity and the compliance utilizing financial monitoring history, the resolution of finding history, and the narratives related to the management processes. For the narrative sections, please limit your narrative description to 300 words or less. Failure to do so will result in reduction in points. Please follow the guidance on how responses should be scored, that is in italicized text below each question. There are 2 types of applicants. The renewal applicants are applicants that have active subrecipient agreements awarded through the NOFA grants from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023. New applicants are considered applicants that have not had a subrecipient agreement awarded, and this would be prior to January 1st, 2022. The first item to discuss is the agency financial management system. Please describe your agency's financial management system according to these federal regulations, to CFR 200. And include in your response specific accounting systems in place and the specific safeguards and internal control policies you have in place. You must attach your agency's financial policies and procedures as an attachment 9. And they should match your narrative, the narrative response that you include, and they should include page numbers where the information can be found. Item 2 is the grant awards received and expended. Please attach a list of grant awards received and expended during the time frame of January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023 as attachment 10. And you must complete the chart shown below by providing the names and qualifications of the financial management in place who will be overseeing the funded operations and administration of the grants. Item 3 is recording staff time and activities. You must complete the chart below to describe the systems in your organization and how they will record the staff time and activities to ensure the accurate billing of eligible activities. Per federal regulations, all staff time billed to a HUD grant must be supported with staff time sheets or certifications. The renewal applicants and new applicants are item 4. Renewal applicants are must timely submit the reimbursement packages are required and must be submitted monthly by the 15th of the following month. Agencies will be scored on their history of the reimbursement package submitted based on the HRD records. A narrative response is not needed for this question. For new applicants, you must provide a narrative to describe the process that you will have in place to ensure that reimbursement packets are submitted on the 15th of the month following the period when expenses are paid. Single audit and audited financial statements. Single audit or prepared financial audit. Agencies that expend $750,000 or more in federal funds in 1 year must submit a single audit report, and it must be included as an attachment 3. Resolution of findings. Fill out the below chart, fill out the chart below detailing any audit or any audit findings that have arisen in the past 3 years. For any audit findings, please attach the documentation to attachment 12 to explain and to demonstrate the resolution findings. For the City of Detroit OCFO findings, you only need to submit the corrective action plan acceptance letter that was required, and that's only for 1 year. The grant fund expenditures. Renewal applicants, there are no need for you to answer this question. There's no narrative needed to answer this question. The scoring will be determined by HRD staff based on the most recent 22 through 23 subrecipient agreements, which includes a completed billing packet submitted. New applicants must provide a narrative description of the process by which you will monitor spending to ensure that all awarded funds are expended fully and eligible activities only. Include staff titles and duties of which those staff members will be responsible. Please include any federal awards that you have spent down completely. And the last item is the financial ratio analysis. Applicants should review the financial ratio analysis, which is located in Appendix E in Part 1 of the informational packet. This will review the CPA prepared financial statements, the budgets, the IRS Form 990. This analysis will be conducted by the City of Detroit Office of the Chief Financial Officer, and it will be worth 6 points. The following attachments are required for this financial ratio analysis. For agencies that expend $750,000 or more in 1 year, you must submit the single audit report as attachment 3. For agencies that did not expend more than $750,000 in federal funds, you must submit your audited financial statements also as attachment 3. The IRS Form 990 should be submitted as attachment 13A. The current year organizational budget should be attachment 13B, and the most recent profit and loss statement should be attachment 13C.
Thank you, Jessica. I think we're going to turn it over to Clarice for street outreach.
Yes, thank you, Stacy. Hopefully you all can hear me better now. But let's
Coming
dive
in
right
loud and clear.
Awesome. Let's dive right in. So outreach target population, we are focusing on households that are category 1, literally homeless as defined by HUD. And this just breaks down as households, that is individuals and families experiencing unsheltered homelessness and that are sleeping in a shelter not fit for human habitation. This could be a car, park, a sidewalk, bus station, transit center, just places that are not fit for human habitation. And thank you, Stacey. Next, we're going to go into the scope of services. So the goal here is just to make connections with unsheltered households and provide services that helps that household achieve permanent housing, permanent and or stable housing. So we want applicants that focus on person-centered trauma-informed services that are also rooted in housing first and harm reduction principles. We're looking for applicants that are able to provide connections to mainstream resources and assess households for housing resources, which includes completing pre-applications for housing choice vouchers when applicable. Applicants are also expected to assist eligible households with becoming document ready, that is, assisting them with finding or obtaining their like ID, their birth certificate, just the items that they would need to begin the process for housing. We also are looking for applicants to coordinate with CAM to provide shelter and housing referrals. And we are looking for teams that are going to work with outside entities such as the Detroit Police Department and specifically the neighborhood police officers. The other outside entities could include but not be limited to the council district managers, the Department of Neighborhood district managers. And essentially the goals there is to provide education and or services or be that connection to services for those outside entities. And we also are looking for teams to have dedicated hours for both navigation and street outreach activities. Here we have an overview of the eligible activities. I won't read the eligible costs verbatim, but just to give a high-level overview, the eligible activities include engagement, which is the cost of the activities to locate, identify, and build those relationships. It could be meals, pop, clothing, toiletries, case management, that is the cost of staffing to carry out such services. Transportation, cost of travel by the outreach workers during the duration of services, and the cost of transporting households for service to like service facilities such as like shelters or taking them to Social Security to get their information for housing purposes. Another eligible cost is HMIS, and that is the cost of running the system, running the software, staffing, software application fees, excuse me, software fees, not application fees. And then we have a little disclaimer here regarding the eligible costs under ESG outreach. Applicants must provide a reason for offering these services that is backed up by data. Please see the NOFA for additional information. Next, we're going to move on to scheduling. A competitive application will operate at minimum of 5 days a week, 8 hours per day. We are looking for teams to be out in the field, both during normal business hours and more so outside of normal business hours. This would include like evenings, early mornings, weekends, and holidays. And we also, as mentioned in an earlier slide, we are looking for schedules that differentiate between street outreach hours and navigation hours.
Thank you, Clarice. And I think we're going to turn it over to Jeremy next to talk about Shelter and Warming Center.
Yes, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me. So yeah, as Stacy mentioned, going over some shelter and warming center details. So target population is any households experiencing homelessness. So families, single adults, youth, which by HUD's definition is age 18 to 24. So really just about anyone. So regardless of population served, we do expect all shelters to follow the equal access to housing rule. The link is in the slide, so if you want to go back and look at it, it gives you the full details of what is expected per those definitions. So scope of services for shelter, to provide safe and accessible overnight stay for those experiencing homelessness, and as always, making clients' homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. So a little wordy here on some of these bullets, but all very important things that you should be aware of when drafting your scope, or just thinking about how your program will operate. So it should have the basic needs, so food, bedding, toiletries, um, providing sufficient and thorough case management that's housing focused. So really, depending on the client situation, but really diving into what's their income, if any, where do they want to live in the city, um, um, things of that nature. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on some things, but just really getting the details, and working collaboratively with housing navigators and any other mainstream resources that they may need. So if there's any employment assistance needed, helping with getting on Indeed and looking for jobs or what have you. Food benefits, things of that nature. So just really anything and everything that that the client might need. Not saying you have to do all of the work, but just making sure you're making the connections to the appropriate organizations so that clients are, getting out of shelter as quickly as possible, and not having to come back into shelter. Um, Low barrier model is how our system operates. So um, it doesn't mean no rules at all. There still does need to be structure for sure, but just minimizing barriers as much as possible to getting into shelter, and to staying in shelter. So just having some flexibility. So that is also linked in the slide if you want to just look more on that, and get some more definitions and best practices and stuff. So alongside with low barrier, for those that currently have contracts with us, we rolled out some community standards this last year. That's was kind of just improving on our low barrier model. So again, just having flexibility with some rules, but not to say that there isn't still some structure in place. Those are not linked, my apologies, but we can definitely get those out. And then obtaining reports from BSEED and the health department, fire department, to ensure that your building is up to code and there's no issues. And if there is any issues, that they're just being addressed. So ensuring that you have all of those as the application is being released. And then obtaining match funding per requirements of ESG funding. Some eligible activities. I kind of spoke on some of these just in scope of service, but eligible activities, for our funding. So again, housing focused case management. So, funding your case managers to be doing the work. Shelter operations. This is also, your frontline staff, maybe, entry level staff. And then also all of the expenses that go along with the shelter, with the building operations, right? So maintenance, rent, food, stuff like that, supplies. HMIS, so if you have HMIS designated staff, any hardware necessary, things of that nature, as HMIS participation is a requirement. And then also services for special populations. So as it says, while these are eligible under ESG funding, we just need some documentation on a reason for why these services are being requested, so that we can just justify it, because as HUD always is looking for, reasonable expenses, and justifiable. So it's just a little bit on that. And then lastly, very important that this NOFA can't fund shelter development or rehab. So no, new construction, things like that. Shelter must be operational by the start of the contract date, which would be January 1 for shelters, warming centers, November 1st. And then fill out one narrative. Oh, I'm sorry. So if you're applying for if you have multiple programs, so 2 shelters and 2 warming centers, let's say, you're still only filling out one narrative, even if you're applying for multiple sites. But just make sure to highlight the differences between the programs and your responses. So, number of beds, or if they're serving different populations, things like that. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Oh, and I see in the chat, thank you, Tara, my apologies. Our community standards are in the appendix, or are in the NOFA under Appendix F. So if you want to look at that some more. So I will now hand it over to Julia. Or maybe Stacy first, then Julia, but I think Julia's just going to take it away.
Yeah, take it away, Julia.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, let's walk through rapid rehousing. So not a ton of changes to rapid rehousing this year, but I'll highlight a couple and walk through just some kind of general overview of the requirements. So our rapid rehousing target populations are folks experiencing Category 1 or Category 4 homeless. As Paige mentioned earlier, all rapid rehousing providers take referrals through CAM. And all referred clients have to be served with no additional screening criteria. So your program can't add additional requirements to participation beyond what HUD requires. So the goal is to provide short-term rental assistance and case management and help stabilize residents in permanent housing. That's going to be up to 24 months at this point of rental assistance and case management. A few of the best practices that are linked here include using a housing first approach. And our programs have to be low barrier. They have to accept referrals, again, without adding additional screening criteria for folks. We use a progressive engagement model, and we're addressing the unique needs of our population. So that might be our older residents, minorities, folks with disabilities. Your program is really making sure that that your case management services are supporting folks regardless of their unique needs. Okay, a couple of new and or semi-new program types under rapid rehousing. So we have the sheltered housing placement program. That's actually been on the last couple of NOFAs, but I did want to highlight it here that it's a relatively new rapid rehousing project type, and it is focused on leasing up folks with HCV vouchers. And you can learn a little bit more about that program type in part 1 of the NOFA. New this year, that has always been an eligible activity for ESG, but not something that we've explicitly called out for applicants in the NOFA, is applying for project-based rapid rehousing. So traditionally in Detroit, both across ESG and our COC programs, our rapid rehousing has been scattered site. So individuals are leasing up and have leases and rental agreements directly with the landlord. But under our project-based ESG model, subrecipients enter into a rental assistance agreement with the owner of a building and then can reserve those units and subsidize that rent for program participants. So I just wanted to highlight that that is an option in the NOFA this year. And a couple other things. So one, both rapid rehousing and prevention have a new calculation worksheet in the budget. I'm going to be walking through that in just a couple of minutes, and that's going to help calculate the rental assistance budget line. And then secondly, I just want to highlight that traditionally we have asked our providers to provide the total households that you project to serve over the course of the contract. So you might have applied in the past and said, we plan to serve 20 households. We have moved this year to align with COC project applications, which request your projected units. So that's the number of units that at any given time you plan to have leased up. So I just want to highlight that that is different this year. And please make sure you pay particular attention because it will impact how you're doing your budget as well as your narrative sections. Eligible activities is the last piece for rapid rehousing. So pretty consistent from years past. Again, rental assistance, we have a new way of calculating that in the budget that we'll walk through shortly. Rental assistance includes up to 24 months of rental assistance and or arrears. Arrears max out at 6 months, but they do count toward that 24-month total. Under housing relocation and stabilization, there's a number of items listed here. The primary ones that our agencies have typically requested reimbursement for and worked through are application fees, security deposits, last month's rent. I have an asterisk here as there's some regulations around paying last month's rent, but it is an eligible cost. Occasionally I'll see moving costs, and then definitely utility deposits and utility payments. You can also pay utility arrears up to 6 months. And then your standards, your housing search, your housing stability case management. Those are the case managers that you'll have included in your budget. a few things on here that I don't see often but are eligible: mediation, legal services, as well as credit repair. And then HMIS, HMIS staffing, hardware and software, those are, again, I'll be walking through in the budget section, but those will be separate line items on your budget as well. We know that you need to do HMIS data entry. We want to make sure we can reimburse you for it. So make sure that you're including it in those budgets. Crystal's up next with prevention.
Thank you, Julia. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so for prevention funding, our priorities here, what we're really looking for in this NOFA is applicants that can provide prevention services to all eligible program participants. So we are not looking for applications that are limiting services to eviction prevention only. Preference is going to be given to projects that hit at all of these bullet points below. These are the same things that have always been open in the prevention area of the NOFA, but we'll go through them quickly. So we're looking for high quality, tenant-centered housing, strong housing focused case management that is client-centered, trauma-informed. You want to showcase that you have demonstrated success in connecting clients to mainstream benefits. Demonstrate progressive engagement model, success for client exits to sustainable permanent housing, and direct connection to workforce development. We are looking for flexible and participant-driven, strength-based service deliveries. Target population for prevention is going to be households that are defined by HUD as category 2 or 4. Annual income is going to be at or below 30% AMI. Prevention programs that only serve households, prevention programs may only serve households that are referred by CAM or approved by the City of Detroit. Couple little notes that I added here. Oh, can you go back for me, sis? Thank you. The city's going to give preference to qualified applicants that have flexibility to serve both families and individuals. And Julia's going to touch on it a little bit more, but I just wanted to make a note to please be sure to carefully review the budget as it has changed from previous years in the NOFA prevention area. So we are looking for providers that are going to serve all eligible clients without additional criteria. Be able to serve doubled up households, which are non-leaseholders. You should have coordination with mainstream services, including the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the 36th District Court, and conduct inspections and lead compliance. The eligible activities are the same as in previous years here. I'm not going to go through every bullet point. Rental arrears. We have the short term up to 24 months. Again, Julia is going to go over in a second that new calculation worksheet. HMIS costs, so you have your staffing, hardware, utilities, like building utilities, anything that's used for that. And I believe in about 2 or 3 more slides, Julia's going to jump back on, and then she's going to show a demonstration of that calculation worksheet.
All righty. Thank you, Crystal. Okay.
Sorry about that, Julia.
You're fine. We're going to walk through budget, and then I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. So if everyone could tune in for this, there are a few new items this year, and we do frequently see errors in this section. So I promise a few more slides, and then we'll take a quick break. Okay, so first of all, in your budgets, please make sure that every budget line item has narrative. The example that I like to give is that we shouldn't see etc. in any of your descriptions, right? We need to see what items are included in your budget to make sure that to bullet point 2, they're meeting ESG regulations. So if you're an outreach provider, saying supplies is not specific enough. We need to know what those supplies are so that we can make sure that they meet the necessary regulations and that they're eligible. Please make sure that everything aligns across your application. Make sure that your budget amount matches the application request on your cover page. Make sure that you're determining how you're going to allocate any indirect costs, if that's something that you plan to do, and reference any ineligible items that we put in part 1. We've gotten pretty good at this point of listing for you all the things that we commonly see that get confusing in terms of ineligible items. So please make sure that you're referencing that and not including anything in your budgets. A couple of new things this year. So budget requests cannot exceed $500,000 per program. And you will be asked to provide additional funding to support your program. And I'll go into that in just a minute. So your scoring is going to be based on availability of a one-to-one match for the funding requested, and we'll ask you to highlight that in a little bit more detail than we have in years past. As always, all requests have to be eligible, allocable, and reasonable per 2 CFR 200. Please review those again. I know that we talk about it every year, and so just make sure that you're taking a look and making sure that even if there's things you haven't noticed in the past, you can always learn from those regs. Again, narrative has to be detailed and complete. Make sure that you're adding as much info as possible. So employee fringes, for example, is not comprehensive enough. We need to know what fringes you plan to request reimbursement for. Make sure everything is calculated correctly. And again, that your budget is aligning with everything that you put in your narrative. So if you speak to having 3 case managers in your program and your narrative, we should be able to look back at your budget and see that same number. Everything should align across your application. Just a budget overview. So as you see these multiple tabs, all of your program types will have tabs. If you are applying for multiple programs of the same type, that is traditionally going to be multiple shelters or a shelter and a warming center, please just go ahead and duplicate the tab so that you can have a budget for each of your programs. So usually if you right click, it gives you an easy option to duplicate, and then you can have a tab for any program type you're applying for. And just to note that HMIS staff are listed under HMIS, so you'll see separate lines in the screenshot here. You can see that we have separate lines for staff, for payroll taxes, for their fringes, and then equipment, and you can separate all of that out in your budget. Okay, other funding sources. So this is more comprehensive than in years past. We are looking for a comprehensive look at other sources of funding for your project, and we will be scoring this piece as part of your budget score. So what we want to see is that we know that it takes money to run programs, and we know that we have a very limited amount through HUD. And so being able to see that you have that your agencies have found additional dollars to support the work that you're doing is going to be scored as part of your budget. So please use this section to identify whatever the funding sources are, the total amount, and then how much of that you're actually using for match. And again, we're looking for the one-to-one match to be included. Is there one before this one that we missed? Perfect. Thanks, Stacey. Okay, so Crystal and I alluded to this. This year we added tabs for rapid rehousing and prevention to help calculate your rental assistance line. This is something that I'm sure your agency was already doing if you've applied in years past. But what we did was, again, we're trying to align the best that we can with our COC projects. And so we are asking for, again, I mentioned this earlier, but we're shifting from households throughout your contract to the number of units that you're going to provide. And so in this example, the agency applied for, it looks like 7 units, 5 1-bedroom, 2 3-bedroom. So they projected having a couple of families. The FMR amounts are already in there for you for 2024. You need to make an estimate of agency rent. You can see the note in here that your best guess there is to look at your previous programs and use historical data. You all, I know, have a pretty good sense of the typical rents that your agency is paying, even though any given resident is going to have a different amount of income. So you're making your best guess there. We're projecting it out over 12 months. And then this grid helps you determine that total rental assistance amount. So again, this is something that your agencies have always needed to do for the budget, but we're putting it right in there for you. It helps us visualize and get a sense of your projections, and hopefully it helps you as well. Okay, a quick word on indirect costs. If you plan to use the 10% de minimis, you just have to let us know that in your budget. So for example, you're asking for $200,000. You've confirmed that all of your costs are eligible for the modified total direct cost rate. Then all you have to do is label for us that $20,000 as your de minimis. That's the great thing about the de minimis, is that you don't need to provide that additional documentation. All we need to know is that you're using it. You don't need to provide the invoices and your billings, and so you just need to note that for us in the budget. A reminder that if you are using it, you have to use it across all of your federal awards. And if you don't already have it bookmarked, I have it bookmarked and I refer to it all the time because it's a complicated thing. The HUD Indirect Costs Toolkit, please review that so that you have a good sense of how to make those modified total direct cost calculations. There's lots of little details in there that the toolkit's really helpful for. All right, I think this is our break, but I do want to remind folks, please keep adding questions in the chat.
Thank you, Julia. That was really well done and very clearly explained. So thanks very much. And I think we are ready to take a 5-minute break. I'm sure that our audience is ready. So we will return at 2:04 and power through the rest of our presentation for you. Thank you.
Hey, Kim, I see your hand raised, and I got your message that chat is not working for you. I'll take your question as soon as we come back from break.
And 204 has arrived, and I know we want to get started, and I know that Donna Lyons has some important information to share with us. So I'm going to let her kick off the second part of our presentation. I did want to just, before you start, Donna, I wanted to, Tara, there are some questions in the chat. I didn't know if you wanted to address them now or or at the end of part 2.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Stacey. So before Donna starts talking about benchmarks and outcome calculation, I believe Kim Conwell had her hand raised. She was not able to put her question in the chat. So Kim, if your question is about content that we've reviewed, I will unmute you and let you ask your question now. If anyone else is having issues with the chat, you can use the raise hand feature in order to ask your question. I just need to unmute you first. Okay, Kim, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Tara. 2 questions. The first is that in Oracle, the application closes at 8 a.m. and not 1 p.m. And I'm wondering if that will cause a problem.
So the application time will definitely check on our end. Something that Cedric is going to go through is to make sure that you have the correct time zone set in Oracle. It oftentimes you have to change your time zone in order for it to adequately reflect Eastern Standard Time Zone. So that's one thing I would check on your end, and Cedric will go over that in his presentation later, and then we'll also check it on our end to make sure it's correct.
Okay, thank you. My second question, in terms of new or renewal, that's determined at the program type level or by specific program or shelter within a program type?
So if you had any contract, so if you had any contract, so let's say you always did shelter, you now want to do rapid rehousing, you would still be considered a renewal applicant. Yep, you would still be considered a renewal applicant.
Okay, so any contract. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your question.
Tara, I think Tricia had a question in the chat about audited financials. You're muted, Tara.
I would like the office, the OCFO's office, Jessica Compton, who presented earlier, to answer that question. Sure. So I think she left. I'm going to try to get her back and clarify this because that is something that they require. So if I don't get your question answered in today's webinar, we will make sure that the question is put into Oracle and answered there, as well as sent out via email.
Hello, this is Jessica.
Oh, hi, Jessica. Great.
Hi. I was trying
Jessica, did you hear the question was, if they don't have audited financial statements, are they eligible to apply for the NOFA?
Well, we would like them to submit it in attachment 3, and it will be discussed with management.
So are you saying they would attach a note stating that they don't have audited financials as attachment 3?
Yes. But they would have to attach whatever it is they have. They could have financials, they may not be audited though.
Okay, let us go over this question a little bit more. Like I said, we'll put it in Oracle with our response, so that you have something in writing as to whether or not agencies without audited financials would be eligible to apply. So we'll get back to you shortly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jessica.
Jessica. Thank you,
Mhm.
Tara. And at this point, I
Stacy,
think,
I'm
yes.
so sorry to interrupt. Matt Tomlin put a question in that's not showing in this chat, but it
Oh,
popped up in a different window for me, at least.
okay. Can
So
you
he
read it to
asked
us?
question number 3, financial capacity to manage City of Detroit grants, asks for the name of timekeeping system agency uses. Mr. Tomlin asked, can you explain more about this and what section of the budget should we place these timekeeping systems?
I'm not clear on
So it's slide 40. So in slide 40, it asks about name of timekeeping system the agency uses. So you're just going to input that name. And then you're going to attach your policies and procedures governing your timekeeping as attachment 11. So attachment 11 is going to be your policies and procedures related to this, and you're simply just putting the name of your timekeeping system, whether it's AltiPro or ADP, whatever timekeeping system you use. And that's referencing slide 40 in this PowerPoint.
Thanks, Tara. I'll keep an eye on this other section that has questions popping up in it.
Thank you,
Thank
Crystal.
you.
Are we ready for Donna Lyons? Thank you, Donna. Take it away.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, let's jump into performance benchmarks. Just an overview here, the city shifted to performance benchmark agreements approximately 4 years ago, and this was just a way to drive quality improvement. And so what we do each year is we measure performance by reviewing baseline data and then determine benchmarks based on how our system is performing overall, which includes RCOC. So we don't just look at city-funded like rapid rehousing or city-funded outreach. We look at the baseline data for all of our COC rapid rehousing or all of our COC funded street outreach to determine our baselines and then determine what our benchmarks will be. Also, in terms of scoring for the NOFA, the 24-25 grant proposals that you will submit will be scored based on 22-23 grant year benchmarks. So the grant year that we just completed will be scoring in this NOFA for renewal applicants. And in later slides, we'll kind of go over what new applicants will submit. When reviewing the data, we ask you to run your reports from October 1 to September 30. And this is just to align with HUD's reporting year for SPMs or system performance measures. And we'll get more into those dates as well in additional slides. So new this year, Stacey, can you go back? I'm sorry. New this year, we just want to make a note that benchmark questions will appear under a new section titled Program Benchmarks. In previous years, each set of benchmarks would appear under the respective program component that you were applying for. So in the past, if you were applying for shelter, then the very last question would be a question related to your performance benchmarks. So this year that has been moved and there's a specific question, a specific section that includes all of the benchmark questions. So make sure that if you are applying for, say, street outreach, when you get to the benchmark section, you want to answer the questions that pertain to street outreach. You want to answer each performance benchmark question for every program component you are applying for. So another example, if you're applying for street outreach and shelter, you want to make sure when you get to the benchmark section, you answer the questions that correspond to street outreach as well as shelter. And for more information pertaining to the benchmarks, you can refer to Appendix C in the performance benchmark section, Part 1 of our information packet. Okay, so for this slide, I just want to point out an error form. It's actually Form 9. Outcome calculation workbook. And so when you receive the slides via email, we will make sure to have that information updated. It is actually Form 9. So Form 9 outcome calculation workbook is an Excel document. And what you're going to do is you're going to download this document and utilize it to calculate your performance in each benchmark section. Again, this is for renewal programs, and we have a slide that will review what new applicants will have to do in terms of this. But for renewal applicants, you're going to make sure to attach this workbook as an Excel document. You want to make sure that you are using a COC APR report to pull your data. You want to make sure that you, again, complete each tab for each program that you are seeking funding for in this NOFA. Each tab has instructions, so you want to make sure to carefully read the instructions on each tab. They will indicate the time frame in which you need to run your data from. And so just please make sure you are reading and paying attention to all of those instructions. All right, street outreach. So for street outreach in 22-23, we combined street outreach and navigation. And so we did not, we're not holding providers to those measures because we needed that year to develop what the baselines were for 23 for the 23 grant year. So you will not be scored in this NOFA, 24-25 NOFA on your actual performance. However, there are questions indicated for you to answer. So we want to know how you will ensure that you will meet those proposed benchmarks. So in the NOFA, in the Appendix C, you will see those baselines listed for 24-25. So you want to reference those and you want to answer all questions connected to street outreach in terms of how you will meet those benchmarks and how you propose to meet those benchmarks moving forward, which are also listed here on this slide, which are percents of clients exited to any sheltered destination and percent of clients who are exited to permanent housing destinations. And for this question, because we are not scoring the actual performance, all applicants will answer this question. For emergency shelters, which include families, singles, youth, and warming centers, the performance measures are listed here as well. So we look at utilization according to the data that's reported on your COC APR report. And we also look at exits of clients to permanent housing destinations. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are reading this entirely, answering all of the questions, following all of the instructions, and making sure that all of the highlighted areas are completed. Each tab for shelter has a little information grid on the side that just has your information that was listed in your HIC reports. And so you want to use that to answer the bed reported via the 2023 HIC as your denominator for that formula. So all of the information you need in instructions will be there. You will just need to pull that information from your report. Thank you, Stacy. Again, looking at rapid rehousing, the performance measures are listed here. We have one other additional slide that has performance measure 3. But for here, we have the average length of time to move clients into housing from program entry, and then percent of clients who exit to permanent housing. Again, please read all instructions and complete all spaces where you see yellow. And one thing I would like to note for this slide, in upcoming NOFAs, the City of Detroit will align with the COC measurement of the average length of time in days from referral to housing move-in. So right now, we are looking at from program entry to housing move-in dates. But moving forward, we will be looking at measuring from the actual date of referral to housing move-in, but you will receive more information and instruction on that as well. And performance measure 3, percent of clients who exit within 180 days. As many of you are renewal applicants, you will recall that this measure was suspended during COVID. And we were not, and we are not scoring you on this metrics in this NOFA. However, we are looking to reintroduce this this measurement. So we are asking that you do provide the data for that. Another thing I would also like to note here is that the outcome calculator does not have the formula to complete this specific measure. And so we will update that information in Oracle, and you will be notified once that information is uploaded. So if you have already downloaded all of your forms, you will want to go back in once you receive that notification and re-download Form 9 so that you are able to provide this calculation. And I just want to reiterate that we are not scoring you on it. However, we are looking to bring that back into our measurements that we review. And so we are asking to for you to provide some of that data so that we can kind of look at baselines. All righty. Looking at the last component, which is prevention. Prevention also has 2 performance measures. One looks at percent of clients who exit to permanent housing destinations. Again, please read instructions, fill out the yellow spaces. And then for performance measure 2, on the next slide, thank you, Stacy. Performance measure 2, we're looking at percent of clients in the program for 3 months or less. And similar to rapid rehousing, this was one of the measures that we were not scoring because of COVID. And we are looking to reintroduce this one. And so we're asking you to go in and provide this data, but you will not be score on it. So again, please wait until you receive that notification that the workbook has been updated, and please provide those 2 scores as well. And so just want to note here for new applicants, as opposed to providing calculations, we ask that you provide a narrative response. So please read whichever section that you are applying for and provide feedback related to how you will ensure the 24-25 benchmarks will be met and how you will monitor and track that performance data. And so again, I just want to reiterate that you want to make sure that you are answering those questions for each component you are seeking funding for in a 24-25 NOFA. So if you're seeking funding for shelter and street outreach, you want to answer that question appropriately for those program components, because how you will meet those benchmarks will look very different for those very different type of components. And so again, please read and review completely to ensure that you have a thorough response to these. And again, all of the performance benchmark information is in the Appendix C of the information packet. So moving right along to a data section. So new this year, we have a data section. So please make sure to complete this section. This section is required for all applicants, new and renewal. So please don't skip this section because it is new. This section was developed to align our data requirements and our priorities with the CLC. And so as you can see, this chart here kind of goes over the things that we will be looking at, starting with data quality and completeness. So you're going to be asked to run a report. And it looks like added an extra 3 there. So that'll be 10/1/22 through 9/30/23. But please refer to the NOFA because there are very specific instructions. If you are applying for multiple programs, you will be required to combine all of the data that you're seeking programming for. So if you have 2 shelters that you're seeking programming for, and your renewal applicant, you're going to want to run that data combined. So please make sure that you are reading all of the sections thoroughly and answering and running the reports as indicated. Also, in terms of HMIS participation, there is a question there. However, it is to inform you that we will be getting that information from hand. It is related to your agency's participation in admin meetings. And so we will look at, we will receive feedback from hand on your agency's participation. And then you can kind of look at the scoring in the NOFA to see how that is broken down in terms of like if you participated 75% of the time versus 50% of the time, or less than 50% of the time. And with the annual ESG CAPER report submissions, again, this information in terms of scoring, we will receive the information from hand. We're basically looking at, with your ESG CAPER reports, did you submit your report on time? Did you submit your report and it was accurate and accepted? And so we will take all of that into consideration when scoring that section. So again, all of the criteria that we will be using to score will be indicated in the NOFA, but you will not need to respond to that question or provide a response to that question. And also for the point in time data requirements, we will be looking again at timely submission of the HIC survey and the PIT APR. And we will also be looking to ensure that the information that you are providing to hand aligns with the information that you have in your contract with the city. So looking at your contract at scope A, we would expect that that information would also align with whatever information you're providing for your HIC data. And so we will be looking at submission, accuracy, and alignment to score that section. And again, you will not need to provide any response for that, but we do have the scoring criteria listed so that you will know what we are looking for and what the expectations are. And then very lastly, for the data section is the data compliance policy. So I encourage you to look at that grid on page 55 in part 2 of the NOFA. There is a table that you will need to complete. So you want to make sure you are completing the table. You want to make sure you are uploading the attachments, that you are providing the page numbers as indicated, and you want to just make sure that you are completing that thoroughly. So again, please take some time to thoroughly go through this section because this is a new section. So you want to make sure you have a complete understanding. And if there are any questions, obviously you can submit them to Oracle. And then the very last section is just for new applicants. For the data section, we want to ask in terms of data quality and completeness, if you participate in HMIS outside of Detroit, there is a Form 1A that we ask that you download, review, and upload along with a COC APR that reflects the combined data, again, for whichever program components that you are applying for, and you will attach that as attachment 22. So if you participate in HMIS and outside, out in a jurisdiction outside of Detroit, there are 2 parts to the data quality and completeness, the Form 1A, as well as the attachment 22. And then there are separate requirements if you are just completely new to HMIS and you are not enrolled outside of any other jurisdictions. You want to complete Form 1B, which is an onboarding plan. So you want to download that form, complete it, and then upload it. And then in terms of the other bullets, you just want to provide a narrative. So for HMIS participation, we would need a detailed explanation of the process for you ensuring that you will participate in admin meetings and other mandatory meetings as established by hand. For the ESG CAPER report, we need an overview of your policies and procedures in place to ensure compliance with all reporting requirements. And then for the point in time data, we need an explanation of the processes for ensuring compliance with data requirements. And then lastly, another kind of 2-part, well, not a 2-part, but 2 separate pieces for the data compliance policy. So if you are active in HMIS, again, outside of Detroit, we would want you to attach your data compliance policy. However, if you're not active in HMIS at all, then we need to know like how you're going to ensure a policy will be put in place in 90 days. Again, for all of these, there are very detailed questions. So again, this is a new section, we ask that you completely go through all of the questions and have a thorough understanding so that you are able to answer them efficiently. And that is it for performance benchmarks and outcomes. I am going to turn it over to Toya for forms and attachments.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk about forms and attachments. Submission expectations is that each form and attachment must be uploaded individually. The forms will need to be completed and they can be found in Oracle. We do ask that you utilize the listed naming convention. For example, where it says F2 cash on hand certification, that is how it is listed in the checklist. We ask that you use that same naming and numbered convention. The application should be uploaded in the Word format, with the expectation, except for forms 4 and 5 should be uploaded in the Excel format. You can use the checklist as reference to make sure that you are naming it and numbering it correctly. We do ask that you make sure that it is named and numbered the same. See the little bullet on the side, because it can actually cause you to lose points. Yeah, thanks. So for slide 2, just notice that some of the, sorry, I'm just making sure I'm on the right. So for this slide, we want to make sure that you can notice that some of them are numbered differently and named differently. So here from the implicating equal access requirements, this is actually new to this section. It was formerly in a different section. So that would be F5 and also F6, certifying the agency does not have active blight tickets at any building service providing services. That is also new to this section. If you look at the organizational experience, attachment 8 is a new form, just moved around and named differently. 8.8 attached to agency staffing training policy. For the financial capacity section, attachment 9, attached financial management policies and procedures is new to this section. Also, attachment 10, attach a list of grant awards received and or expanded, during the time frame of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. And attachment 11, attached policies and procedures governing timekeeping and retention and timekeeping records is also new to this section. For program components, attachment 15, case management policy is new to this section, as well as Form 8, emergency shelter community standards form, attachment 18, agency shelter rapid rehousing and or prevention termination policies and procedures. Also, attachment 20, rapid rehousing eviction prevention policy is new to this section. So again, we ask that you just make sure that you are referencing the checklist as well as the application to make sure that you are naming them correctly. NOFA timeline. Some key dates to remember, January 31st, the NOFA open in Oracle. February 7th, today, NOFA pre-bid webinar. February 21st, NOFA question and answer webinar, and there'll be a link to the registration. February 22nd, questions close in Oracle. And March 4th, 2024, NOFA closes in Oracle. This is another timeline to get familiar with. Again, the NOFA closes on March 4th. The applications will be reviewed in March and funding recommendations will be made in early April. Appeals will happen in late April. And the city council approval in late April or May. And the award letters will go out in the summer of 2024. And some helpful tips to make sure you're responding to all parts of the questions, to ensure that policies and procedures reflect the HUD regulations, which includes the narrative response. If you don't meet the benchmarks, to make sure that you thoroughly explain what you'll be doing in the upcoming year to make sure that you meet those benchmarks. And how will you utilize HMIS monitor performance to assist with that? And also how will you shift services to also help you with meeting those benchmarks? And please get familiar with the HUD, the program regulations for ESG programs, to ensure that the response reflect what is happening in the programs. That we ask that you speak with program staff for feedback. Here are some helpful resources that you all can utilize to assist you in completing.
Thanks, Toya. I think that we are ready for Cedric, but before we do that, Tara, do you want to field some questions in the chat, or do you want to do that at the end?
No, I'm happy to do that. So I responded about 8:10, so it's just ESG and CDBG. And then in terms of the naming convention, there is instructions on page 57 of part 2. And so it clearly outlines what how you should name these files that you're attaching. I'll drop that in the chat. But that should, Jean, if you're able to look at that and see if that addresses your questions, or if you have additional questions, you can put them in the chat.
Okay, and I believe we are turning it, oh, there are hands up, Tara. Before we move on, do you want to take those hands?
Sure. Linda, I'm gonna unmute you. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay, you can hear me?
I can.
Okay, I wasn't able to figure out how to enter something into the chat, so I don't know if other people are also having that issue. Okay, about the naming convention, do we have to name our files and the document with that precise name?
You do.
You do. Okay.
No, you don't have to rename your policies and procedures. You just need to, when you're attaching the file, make sure the file name has that. You don't have to change anything else. So
I don't have to type in at the top of the document that that's the.
No, you just need to change. You just need to make sure that the file name is, so when you're saving your PDF, make sure that the file name that you're saving that PDF is, A10, right?
Right. So when you look at it in Oracle, you can identify it.
That's exactly right. It's just for us to be able to easily identify those attachments, as opposed to having to click on every single one to try to figure out what attachment is A10 and what attachment is A7. So that's why we asked that.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I have is to Ms. Lyons. The part about how you will judge program benchmarks for new shelter program applications.
Yes. I'm just going back on a slide here.
Yeah, and if I missed it, I stepped away for a second. If I missed it, just refer to the page for me.
Yes, so on page 85 is the narrative for performance benchmarks for new applicants. Slide 85.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. Tara, are you trying to talk to us, or?
Yep. We'll go to Cedric now. I think I'm saying the exact same thing, and then folks can feel free to put in additional questions as Cedric is presenting.
Super. All right, and Cedric, you can take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
All right, very good. Let me know when you can see my screen.
We see your Oracle login. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Cedric McCree here, Office of Contracting Procurement. Just a brief demonstration on how you would be able to submit your application in the Oracle system. You'll sign in with the email address that you registered with and the password that you set for yourselves, and you will click sign in. And if you should get this message, just go off and just re-enter it. That just meant I was waiting too long before it timed out. If you should get this screen, come to the home icon, click it, and it'll take you to the app for Supplier Portal. Click the Supplier Portal icon, and this is going to bring you up to the Supplier Portal screen. You're going to have a dashboard in the middle, and there are some shortcuts if you, quote, have received invitations, but we're going to assume that you didn't receive an invitation And so I'll direct your attention to the tasks side of where things are over to the left. And if you will just go down until you get to search or view current bid opportunities and click that blue hyperlink, you'll land on the active negotiation page. On that page, that's where you would put the NOFA number. And I believe in this case, it's going to be 184293. And we're assuming that, of course, we didn't receive an invitation. Just blank that field out and then click yes. And it will be isolated for you. Click the hyperlink for the NOFA, and it'll bring you to the cover page of the application. Some things to note on this page. Please note your time zone. If your time zone is not where you live or Eastern time zone, please, if you have something like Universal Coordinated Time Zone, change that. I'll show you that before we leave in the training session, but you'll need to set your time zone to where you live. That Universal Coordinated Time Zone, excuse me, that's basically London time, about a 5-hour difference, and we don't want you to miss your opportunity because you see the time in the wrong way. Note that we've landed on the cover page, and on the cover page, you'll see some basic information that when you scroll down about some important dates or times, note there is a question period that you must meet within the time period. So you can just look down here, make sure that you have your information or your questions in by that deadline. You may ask, where would I find my data or my attachments? Under the table of contents, please go to the overview section. You're going to find documents in two sections, the overview and the requirements section. In the overview section, should you click on that hyperlink, you'll get a synopsis of what this particular NOFA is about and your initial attachments. The way to read this is that you have a 24-25 homelessness solution file that's here, plus one more for a total of 2. And if you click between the parentheses, you'll get a listing of both of those attachments. Please, you can open these up. Anything that's in the blue is a hyperlink, meaning there's more data behind it. And so you can click on it, open it up, see the contents of that, and follow the instructions accordingly. Let me also state that there is, these forms are not fillable, meaning that you can't open it up, type something in and save it back there. If there's a document that you need to modify in some sort, you will need to put it on your own system and then make those modifications there or those updates there, and then update it, upload it back in. The other forms that you may be looking for will be in your requirements section. And I'm going to just change the way that this looks so it looks the way it's supposed to when you see it. It's going to be a series of questions and answers, but here are all of the various forms that you may see. And note, here are the forms that you can, again, download, fill them out accordingly, according to the instructions, and you then have to upload them back here. And anything that has an asterisk next to it means that you have to fill something in. So in this case, if it's A, then you got to put an A there. If it's A or B, or in this case, you upload, you get a plus sign in order to upload your completed document back to where you found it. And I'll just go down this row. You'll note it's got a whole lot of forms, which were talked about. This is where they are all located. So please make sure that you answer everything accordingly. And then there is another section that will be forms that are more or less for the city of Detroit, and I think that's like after number 40. There are going to be forms that are just for requirements. But this is where you will find all of your forms, and you would upload them back in this area. Don't use the back arrows to navigate because they belong to your browser. If you do, it's going to take you out of Oracle. Instead, use the Done tab. It will take you to the previous page. So if you need to go back, click Done. If you need to send messages, come to the Message tab here, click the Message tab, click the plus sign, and it will give you a send message screen, and you can put your questions then, in this area. Note with these asterisks, you got to have a subject, and you can put something here in the body. So, for instance, question 1, question 2, and so on. Or maybe you want to say, I want to put everything in a Word document and attach it. Say that you have an attachment below, click the plus sign here, click Browse, and I'm just going to grab some document and pretend that it is my question document. And once I have it, it'll upload the title. And when it does, I can say OK, and you'll see that the file has been uploaded in this area. Oh, this takes a little longer than I thought. You can put the appropriate, there we go. You can put the appropriate description that's there. When you say OK, here is your file that has now been uploaded or attached. And then you can just say send, and it'll be off to your buyer and or the team to then answer your questions in the time that they have indicated. I'm going to click Done just to go to the previous page. When you're ready to actually start uploading your documents and making your responses, click Create Response. You'll know that you're in an interactive session when you get these train stops or these whistle stops, which will allow you in each area to collect some data. So you land with a response number that is unique to you and your company. No one can see it. And so you can put the information that you like, and it's going to be totally confidential. Not even the buyers will see it until everything has been closed and finally come to the part where things will be evaluated and adjudicated. We're going to already assume that your responses will be valid for a year, so you don't have to put anything there. This is where you would attach your documents if these were just some supporting documents, not the ones we saw in the requirements section. If you were putting something else there, you can attach them here. Click the plus sign, click Browse, grab your document by double clicking, or you can highlight it and say OK. And when the title fills in, say OK, and you'll see your document attached. You just keep doing that, the plus sign, the browse, and clicking. And when you're done, you can move to the next circle. I also note you have a countdown clock for you. If your clock says 25 days and 17 hours, it really does mean 25 days, 17 hours, not 17 hours and 1 second. Please give yourself enough time to put all of your information in and not be in a rush at the very last moment, because we do not want you to miss an opportunity because the NOFA closed. So please give yourself enough time, and should you have issues, problems, contact the e-procurement group so we can help get you through it. With that being said, you would fill out the various things that are here. If you got it from here, I would take it, you would put it right back here when you are uploading it. Make sure that you have something filled in. These are all required because they have that asterisk there. I will not fill all of these out, just showing you where to put things after you are ready to complete. When you're ready, go to next, and it'll advance you. And if there is some number that you're to put here, and I don't know that there is, but if there is, here is where you would put the number that you want. Do not fill anything in that minimum response amount. Leave that blank. And when you're done, click next. And it'll take you to a review section so that you can see what you have put in. So starting with the overview column that's here, here's what you attached here and anything else you might have done. In the requirements section, here's what you put here. As soon as this circle finishes, here's what you put here and the answers. And finally, in the line section, here's what you have put here. I know that people are busy, and because we are busy people, a million moving parts every day, there are times when we may need to leave this and come back to it later. To do that, we can save and close without loss of data. Use the pull down arrow under save. You'll see save and close, and this will save your response for you to retrieve later. And I'm going to show you now how to go back and retrieve it. I'm clicking done just to go to the previous page and clicking done again to get back to our task menu. And instead of going to search and view current bid opportunities, we're going to go to manage responses. I'm going to click that hyperlink and note my draft is here, locked and sealed. And here's the response number that I had. And when I want to open it back up, just highlight the line in blue by clicking the beginning of the line. Go under the word actions and unlock the draft. Say OK. And then click revise. And it brings you right back to where you left off. You can then finish up any and everything else that you want to do. Then click submit, and you'll get a confirmation that your NOFA has been submitted. I do want to show you one other thing before I show you how to set your time zone. And just, I did cancel just to go back to that screen. When you see draft, draft means that you have not submitted it, but you started working on your response. Here's that negotiation number. You will know that you have submitted it when your response status goes from draft to active. So when you see the word active, you know that you did indeed hit that submit. And you still are able to update your active response. Just go back and unlock it, you know, like you did before. But once it's closed, then no changes can be made after that. Now, with that being said and done, I just want to show you how you can set your time zone. I'm going to click done. And I'm going to go back home. And I'm going to go to tools. I'm going to go to set preferences. I'm going to go to regional. And at the bottom, you'll see the time zone. And so if your time zone says universal coordinated time, please use the pull down arrow, select the time. In this case, if it's Eastern time, select New York Eastern time. Don't select Indiana because half the time they're in sync and half the time they're not. And then you can do a save and close once you've selected it. And that's how you change your time zone. And you can go back home. Are there any questions?
I didn't see any specifically for you, Cedric, but folks in the audience, if you have questions, you have access to Cedric now. This would be a great time to get some clarity if you need it. No one has accused Oracle of being super user-friendly, so I would take advantage of the technical assistance that you have here. And hearing nothing or seeing nothing, Cedric, thank you so much.
Statement that although Oracle may not have had that accusation. All the people who are working in our section, we're friendly.
There you go. Thank you for that. That's wonderful. Yes, thank you.
Hey, I mentioned one other thing, and that's just right quick to let you know that we do have a technical supplier support page. On this page, we have how-tos, including videos of everything that we do, like how do you put a bid in, how do you register, how do you submit an invoice, and so on and so on. You just click the steps that are there. I'll be more than happy to put this in the chat.
Thank you.
For your perusal.
Thank you so much. And there is a question now. Kevin asks, can you show the screen that leads to the home page again, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, going to, and you're talking about this page here or the sign-in screen?
I'm not sure. Kevin said, can you show the screen that leads to the home page again? Maybe the login? I'm not actually sure.
Let me log out. I'm going to click confirm, and we get this sign-in screen for Oracle Cloud. When you register, you're going to get a URL. Looks like this, but really it's just the first portion of it. But that's something that you will sign in with, but I will put this also in the chat, okay? I won't put the whole big thing. It'll just be the first portion and you'll be able to sign in.
Thank you so much, Cedric. And
okay, and that
Kevin says thank you. So you must have answered his question. Yep. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think the team is ready to take any other questions as well. Cedric, are you all set?
I am all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for doing a great job of some really technical stuff. So thanks for presenting that. And if you want to stop sharing your screen, I'm going to have our team come back and show their faces, and we can field any questions. We're at time right now, but I think most of us are willing to stay on and make sure that there are no questions left unanswered for the moment. So please feel free. We'll stay on for maybe another 3 minutes. Let folks who had to step away come back and quickly chat us up. But we'll be here for another 3 minutes or so. So please feel free to ask questions. Your next opportunity will be in Oracle. You will not be able to reach out via email to the staff here in Homelessness Solutions. And Candace has a question. Tara, can you allow her to unmute herself, please? She's got a hand raised. I'm guessing she can't chat us up.
Candace, you should be able to unmute. Candace, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you can't.
I'm sorry. I was halfway into my spiel. So now you got to sit through me do it again.
All right, let's do it.
It goes back to the performance part. I will go back and look, but I'm hoping you can just immediately point me in the right direction. Under the performance part, there was a question I asked you about PIT and HIC. And you did answer it, Tara. You said you would be looking at last year's. Now and I asked that question because we just did turn in the PIT information. So they would have had that available. And the HIC information is due on the 16th of this month. So I was wondering why we were going back to the 23rd when that stuff would be available. And then if we are going back to the 23rd, which we are for that information, what is the point attributed to that particular performance point, to that area, Hick and Pitt?
Sure. So the reason why we do for 2023 is because that information hasn't, like, it's not all in for this year. And when we're looking at the data, when we're looking at benchmarks and everything else, we're also looking at 2023. And so that is why we're using that year's data as well. So we're not using 2024 for those reasons. And then the whole data section is worth 10 points. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 questions. So I'm assuming that, yeah, I'm assuming that's either going to be, 2 or 1 or 2 points each
Okay.
for that section.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tara, you have 2 questions in the chat.
Sure. So let's see.
One is regarding the deadline for questions in the NOFA. Maybe Donna can look at that while you address Ruth's question about whether having a fiduciary would make them ineligible for application.
No, having a fiduciary would not make you ineligible to submit an application.
Thank you.
And the date is the 22nd. February 22nd, 2024 at 11 a.m.
And is the Q&A webinar maybe the 26th? And that was the discrepancy?
I'm sorry. The 21st is the question and answer webinar. The 22nd is when the questions close in Oracle. So no, so I don't see where nothing we have noted for the 26th.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
Yep.
I have one more. Can I ask one more question, guys?
Yes, you can.
Earlier on in the presentation, there was a slide that listed the programs that you could apply for or the projects you can apply for. And there were 2, besides the main 3, rapid rehousing, shelter, and outreach, there were 2 others. Have you, just one other? Okay, just one. I know it was something different. There was a rapid rehousing one, and there was something about HCV, rapidly moving folk from leasing up with HCV. Did I hear that totally wrong?
I can get that one. Let me see if I can find what slide number it is, but
let me finish asking the question there while you're looking. Because I thought there were 2, but it could be just one.
Go ahead.
Have you attributed certain dollar amounts to those particular buckets? And if no one applies for those buckets, would that allow the cap of $500,000 per program to be increased?
So at this time, we're asking for budgets to not exceed $500,000. I can't imagine a situation where we would, I don't believe so, Candace.
Okay.
We'll need to get the applications in and look at everything and see how everything scores out. But given that we only have, approximately $5.5 million for all of these program components, I don't imagine that will be a situation that we'll have.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Linda, I think, has her hand up.
Yeah. So following up on Candace's on the discussion about the budget. So the budget of our whole program or the budget of our request can't be more than 500,000.
The budget of your request for it to be funded out of this NOFA cannot exceed 500,000.
And you're looking at a 1-to-1 match. Okay.
We are looking for 1-to-1 match. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So just a reminder again, to Just a reminder again that you can submit questions via the Oracle system. I know we're over our time. We're happy to stay on for as long as there are questions. And then we also have that Q&A webinar. So Candace, it looks like you have your hand up.
Okay, last one. I remember when she brought that one-to-one matchup, something sparked my memory. There was a bullet in that said that there may be a way that you can use CDBG or request some match assistance. Can you speak to that for me, or did I read that incorrectly?
Sure. So as we make grant awards, we do have CDBG funding that, not as much as ESG, but we do have CDBG funding that we use as match at a system level for ESG. We won't know until we make the awards who will be required to have that match. And so what we ask for is, if we are not able to provide it, how would your agency meet that match obligation? So that is, that's where that is coming from. The award recommendations would include, you would see if you also were awarded CDBG, and that would then lower your match requirement as an agency. But for the NOFA, what we're asking for is for you to show that you do have the ability to meet that one-to-one match.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Kim?
The 500,000 is by program, not by application, correct?
It is by program. So you can apply for 3 shelters. Each of those could have up to $500,000 per shelter budget.
Thank you.
Yes. Candace, you still have your hand up. Did you have another question, or was that from before?
No hands up from me.
Okay. Julia, did you want to just talk about the rapid rehousing?
Yeah, I think that Candace's question was mostly addressed by you, Tara, in terms of allocation of funding. But just to note for folks that slide 60 outlines, there are a couple of different types of rapid rehousing. So the one that Candace mentioned is SHP, sheltered housing placement, which is focused on leasing folks up with HCVs. And then new this year is that an eligible ESG component is project-based rapid rehousing, and we haven't explicitly called that out in previous NOFAs, but we're doing so this year as an option. So yeah, folks have other questions, definitely let us know.
Linda, I see your hand up. Linda? If you're talking to us, you're muted.
Thank you. So if we're submitting for a warming center and a shelter that are in the same building, are we submitting 2 responses in the program component section or 1?
So your emergency shelter, when you're answering these questions, we are expecting that your policies and procedures for a warming center are going to mirror those of an emergency shelter. And therefore, because they're both emergency shelters. And so therefore, when you're responding, you would respond as an agency what your shelter policies and procedures are. If there are certain differences that are for a warming center, you would call out those differences in your response. So all of our emergency shelters adhere to this policy and procedure. We do X, Y, and Z. We do want to note that the warming center, the 3rd Street Warming Center, has this difference because of X, Y, and Z. So you would, you're going to, in the past, we had you fill out, you're applying for 5 shelters, you filled out 5 shelter program components, but a lot of that was the exact same information that you simply copied and pasted for each shelter. So that's why we've done away with that. You have 1 response, but you call out if there are any differences between the programs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Jean Griggs has her hand up, Tara. Oh, and Linda's also back up. Let's take Jean, and then we'll come back to Linda.
Sure. Jean, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. First question. On the project-based rapid rehousing, that means that the agency would come into an agreement with a landlord or apartment complex of some sort for X number of units. lease the units, and then provide the rental assistance for those units to that landlord. This could also be scattered site, I would think.
Yes.
If a
So you
landlord
could,
has 5 or 6 properties that he wants to lease specifically to your clients.
oh, and those 5 or 6 properties or 5 or 6 units are different properties?
Yeah, that's my question. Is it strictly for apartment buildings, or could it be for scattered site owners?
That is a great question. When we were, oh, go ahead, Julia.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, at the end of the day, you as a subrecipient would have to enter into a rental assistance agreement with the owner to get the
Right.
unit. So I would think that that would require it to be the same building. Otherwise, you're starting to get into different agreements. But I'll see if Tara has anything to add there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, in combination with that, in that financial rental assistance grid that somewhat mimics the way the COC HUD's grid, the difference is that you have a column in there for what your expected output would be on a monthly basis versus what the FMR is. If in fact, whether it's project-based, an apartment building or scattered site, if in fact your clients that you're receiving don't have income, which one of those columns is the column that you're reducing your request by? That's the one you're going to be funded for versus the FMR. With HUD, it's the FMR. So if you say you think you might be getting clients that may have income, but you don't, then you're actually cutting yourself short, aren't you?
Yes, you would be. So I would look at historically what you, as a rapid rehousing provider, I would look at historically, if only 5% of your clients have income, you want to put that 5% in. If you want to say, I mean, that budget is up to you to decide on that. Yep. You won't be scored negatively if you expect none of your clients to have income, right?
Okay.
That won't impact the score. We're just trying to get that calculation for what the actual rental assistance needs to be a little bit more firmed up and try to have it a better align with the COC.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the scattered site, if you have a landlord that does have 4 or 5 vacant properties, or anticipate having 4 or 5 vacant properties in the next year, to me that might be the same type of situation as an apartment building with 5 open units.
Yeah, so I think honestly, if you have a landlord and have that agreement, I think it's just you as an agency discussing what's the best way to apply for it. There's no benefits or there's no pros or cons to applying for project-based versus applying for a scattered site. So it would just be up to you to decide if you have a landlord that has those 5 units, how you would like to apply. Again, one isn't ranked higher than another. So applying for a scattered site just to allow yourself that flexibility if you want to do that, or if you have you feel like you have a very firm commitment and you want to go that route, then that's up to you as well. So again, there's no more points assigned, more or less points assigned to those different models.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Linda had her hand up. Linda, do you still have another question?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, Tara, I am ready to call it whenever you are. I think folks have been bringing really great questions. I don't want to cut anyone short. So do you want to say another 3 minutes? We'll stay on and we're here if folks have questions. And Julia's putting something in the chat.
Yep, we'll stay until 3:20. Last minute, folks. 1 more minute. Again, does not mean you cannot ask questions later. Again, submit them through Oracle, as well as feeling free to make sure you put that Q&A, register for that, and put that on your calendar. It is not mandatory, but may be helpful to you as well.
Tara, we are at 3:20. And on that note, I'm going to stop the recording and transcription, and folks can sign off. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Did someone already turn it off? No. Couldn't turn it off before.